Hi there. So today we are on for another episode of the Freedom Seeker series. And I started this series because I'm fascinated by the different ways that people create more freedom in their life and work and business. And there just isn't one right way to do this. Freedom looks completely different for all of us. So that's what these fast-paced, focused 15 minutes are for, to hear how other people are doing life differently and hear what their version of freedom is. And we talk about what their version of freedom is, myths that they've heard a lot about how they live and that shouldn't be there, and some of the practical tips and hacks that they've got that can maybe help us all live with a little bit more freedom. Today, I'm very, very excited to be joined by Jacqueline Rogers, who does things all over the world, and I'm very privileged to be involved in one of her businesses as well. Jacqueline, do you want to introduce yourself and share with us what your version of freedom is?
I would love to. Thank you, Julie Rogers. I'm the founder of the Athena Network. The Athena Network's a business club for women, business networking club, and we are based primarily in the UK, and now we've got a reach globally as well. So Singapore, which is where
All right.
you became connected to us, and we're launching in Dubai, and there will be groups launching in Europe as well in 2027. So I'm loving that because it means that I can go and visit all of these countries, even if it is online at that particular time. But it spreads my reach to women I wouldn't have been connected to before, but also opportunities in business and in life. I get to meet amazing women who light me up in different ways. My life isn't just about business, there's other things that I love
Mhm.
about it as well. But freedom for me is very, very simply being able to do what I want when I want to do it. And that I personally have a lifestyle, which includes my business, that can accommodate that. And I didn't always have that, Julie. Did
Mhm.
when I was a child. I was very privileged to be brought up in an RAF environment. My father had loads of tours overseas. It was quite exciting. I'm the kind of individual who gets excited by change, where everybody else in my corporate career, for example, like, they're going to change all the teams around. I'm like, really excited about it because that changes freedom for me as
Yes.
well. Living a life the same, doing the same thing every day is just so restrictive. And so I love change. And I would say that for us, the 2020 and going through lockdown and all of those things and how I pivoted the business opened my life up more than I'd ever anticipated. In so much as, and it sounds contradictory because we were in lockdown, we weren't allowed to go
Mm.
out, all of these things where I was just like, well, we make the most of this. We just expand, we open up meetings for women globally, and it was a phenomenal difference to our business and
Mm.
how we grew, because I realized that nobody needed a passport. We didn't have to cross borders. We could still be traveling, even if it's
Mm.
on the internet.
I'm so excited to be joined by you today, because your business, helps people maintain, get more freedom. I feel is my experience.
Yeah.
What other myths have you seen that maybe stop people from living life differently?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones that I hear, the most common one, and I probably hear it because I had that voice in my own head for quite a while as well, was I can't do that. So I love to travel. It's
Hmm.
inherent in me. I was kind of literally born traveling, and there are sometimes in the past where I've restricted that because I thought the family need me, the business need me, I can't do this because. So again, I had conditions and circumstances that limited me. My dog, who will look after my dog, and every one of these things can easily be overcome because
Mm.
my boys are living their best life with their children, and they're doing that because they modeled me doing that, and I think that's an
Yeah.
important thing as well. I didn't intentionally do that. I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't doing it so that they could, but I realized by me going for what I'd really love, for doing what's true for me, traveling
Hmm.
where it's true for me to go, then they couldn't not be influenced by that. but it was interesting where it was a couple of years ago, and I was having this conversation with my sister who's recently purchased a home in Cyprus but doesn't live there. She goes there for holidays.
Hmm.
And I said, can you see yourself living here? And we had this conversation about, I can't because. And then we listened to it, but when both of we were playing like a game together because of this, because of the grandchildren, because I'd have to give up my home in the UK because of this, because of that. And I said, these are just all conditions or circumstances. What would you really,
Yeah.
really love? And she went, I just want to be here in the sunshine and living this life where, you know, the food is, you can taste the tomatoes. So we started playing with that as well. You know, what would you be gaining instead? But I think that the conditioning of there is a certain way to behave had such a tight grip on me. Not now,
Yeah.
but it did.
We were missing pets at one point, and using a really similar technique to what you just talked about now, rather than going down the negative spiral, we started to think, well, how can we, how can we find a way to get pets in our life? So we know pet sit for like
Oh,
we've just finished a
fabulous.
2 month pet sit
Yeah.
in Cambodia with 3 cats. You're right, there's so many things that can be problems, but if we open ourselves up to, all right, well, how could we do it in spite of
Yeah.
that, and ask ourselves a
Mm.
different question, there's always a way, which is dangerous, right? Because once we disassemble these sort of reasons, then we're like, well, why are we not doing the thing?
Any kind of goal or thing that you're going for, I can give myself 100 reasons why I shouldn't be
Mm,
doing it, but I'm pretty, as I said, I'm tenacious, and I'll sit down and have a conversation with myself or journal it all out. If I just took a year off and I just went traveling and I rented out my home, or it's like, yeah,
mhm,
but what are my neighbors going to think? Who cares? It's
mm,
like they don't worry about me. Well, we do, but in a human sense, but they probably will be like, oh, that's really exciting. Yeah, if your people who are renting need any help. But it is a process that I take myself through when I'm going through what it is that I would love to do. I do look at my dream and I look at my current reality, and my current reality is those conditions, circumstances. It's the beliefs, the mainly the beliefs, but that I have about why I wouldn't necessarily be able to do something. And I do
mhm,
think that alchemizes the situation. It takes the sting
mm.
out of it.
That's a wonderful tips there. Journaling, when we're kind of like thinking about something, we can almost like hear ourselves saying why we can't do it. Just to journal it out and have that
Mm,
conversation with ourselves sometimes is really helpful. And I think also what I took from what you're saying is that asking ourselves a different question, rather
yeah.
than, oh, I can't because, it's kind of like, well, I think you said when you and your sister were having the conversation, you said, well, how can I, or what if, but just like looking at it
Mm,
from an upward spiral rather than looking at it from a downward spiral. Are there
yeah.
any other sort of tips or hacks that you've sort of like found helpful in making sure that you're staying on the track which is giving you more freedom?
Yeah, so for me, it's been open. It comes back to that networking conversation that we had as well. It's just been open to
Mm,
hearing serendipitous conversations that they might not even be ones you're involved in. I'm very
mm,
nosy. I can I can be in an airport and listen to a family's conversation. They're talking about, oh yeah, we need to go back to that restaurant. What restaurant? I will ask. I am that traveler who just goes, excuse me, you mentioned, I love that kind of food. Where is it? That sort of thing. But it is being open to serendipity. And I'll give you an example of that, Julie. So I was talking to RIP lawyer about trademarking. And she now lives in Spain. And she said, so we've got these Interrail tickets. And I'm like, what's Interrail? I have never heard of this. So now, long story short, I'm interrailing. I'm going to be interrail.
oh, brilliant.
Oh my gosh, well, I had never known that this was a thing. I was like 2 weeks ago, the first time I'd ever heard of this. And now I've been looking and thinking, I could actually be on a train reading my book. That's one of my passions. I love to read. And I could be reading, I could be journaling, and there's this amazing view because you don't get that on a flight.
Hmm.
It's you just don't get the views, and that's something I love. And there's there's the sound of the train. So yeah, my tip would just be open. It's like
Mm,
ask for what you want, even if you're only asking yourself. So in the context, what is freedom to you? That's the question I would be asking. What is freedom to me? And for me, very similar to you, freedom is the opportunity to travel. But freedom also
mm,
means I've created a lifestyle, I've created a business which gives me that freedom as well. So I can be in Thailand as I was in like December last year, and I can host a meeting there, and it
mhm,
doesn't matter. The whole village Wi-Fi did go down, so that's another story. But usually it works really well. But again, even with that, I had a plan. What if? Because I knew that in Thailand that there was a possibility things may go wonky. So I had another team behind me to do
mm,
things. But it is asking better questions of yourself. Your ideal of freedom, my ideal of freedom may not be somebody else's, but they're just inspired by the word. They go, yeah, freedom, I definitely want that. But it's like people use the expression financial freedom. Well, what does that mean? For one
mm,
person, it can mean I've got enough to pay my mortgage every month and I can go on a holiday for 3 weeks every year. That's it. For another
mhm,
person, it could be my mortgage is paid off in full. I've got squillions in the bank. I'm traveling with luxury. So it's really knowing what freedom is, what it means to
mm,
you, and then asking those questions. I
mm.
absolutely know then that the opportunities come up because I know before going on the call with Yvonne to talk about trademarking, I had been thinking and journaling, what do I want to do next? What do I want to do that's really different that I've never done before? Not just to tick
Yeah.
something off my bucket list. It wasn't about that. It was very much about, I just want to do something different.
Love what you said then about freedom, and I think this is something for people to think about as well. There's almost like an assumption I find, and I wonder if you notice this, that financial freedom is the freedom that we think we have to get first, and it's only after we've got
Yes.
financial freedom that
Mm,
then we can get time and location freedom, and we have to systemize our
yeah.
businesses and automate, and then we step away from them to get those things.
Yeah.
And I've just found, like, yes, that's one way, but it is possible to choose time and location freedom. And if you choose those first, it means you have to design your business differently. And it means you have to go slower or,
Mm,
do things differently, which is what we're talking about now.
yeah.
But it is totally
Yeah.
possible if those things are most important to
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100% with that because that's something that I do here is like, oh, I can't do that because I don't have enough money. And again, that's the condition, right? That's the or the circumstance, sorry, putting a condition in place I can't do, but the circumstances are I don't have enough. But it's like, who said that you need loads of money in the bank to be able to travel? Well, you can just as easily work, as long as your business is, I guess if you're a local plumber, that's not going to work. They need to have a different conversation with themselves. But
Mm,
I know for one of my sons, he's an electrician, and they use if he was to work overseas, he would just look at what countries use the same whatever it is they
mhm,
do with electrics, what use the same. So even with trades, there's possibilities. But
mm,
yeah, I see, hear that, should I say, an awful lot. No, I can't do that because I need to save up for it.
mm.
But what if you were doing it and saving up and living a life that,
And especially, like overseas life can be a lower cost base than it is
oh my
in
gosh,
your home
yeah,
country. I mean, I think our dinner last night was a couple of dollars for like a delicious
wow,
dinner, and
yeah,
then so if your cost of living is lower, my kids never pay more than £1 for a boba tea. And I know it's very different in other countries, Singapore or the UK or something like
yeah,
that. So, what if your cost base is lower whilst you're growing your business and you're living
mm,
where you want to live, what a
yeah, I love that. No, true. It's like, I felt, oddly, I felt like I came back from Thailand with more money than I went with. It's because meals were just so inexpensive, but yeah, and I ate like a queen, I had the most delicious food. It was lovely. Yeah. One of my favorite things with Thailand is the night market. You just kind of like, and the locals are using it. And again, that was one of the rules of my dad when we are somewhere, then have a look where the locals shop, have a look where they eat, and then do that. And I just had the most amazing experiences by doing that, by just being open to. I'm not always
Yeah.
understood, but that's okay. I guess, that could be another condition. People go, oh, well, and I've had that as well, where I've been like, oh, well, I don't speak Spanish, I don't speak French. How can I do Interrail? Because how will I cope? And it's like, well, now we've got Google Translate. There is
Mm.
absolutely no excuse, it's just there are ways
Yeah.
around it now. Yeah. Yeah.
How and where can people find you, Jacqueline, if they
They
want to
can
know
find
more
me
about
online.
Athena? And
If they go along to theathenanetwork.com, and they'll find
Mhm.
me there. Also, if they'd like to follow me on Instagram at Jacqueline Y B Rogers. And I'd love to engage with your audience. I'd really love to hear and see what other people are doing, because that's what inspires me
Mm.
as well.
Likewise, if anyone wants to know more about how to get more location freedom, I've got a simple guide you can see in my bio. And if you want to follow along and share with me your version of freedom, Jackie and I would both love to hear. So thank you very much, and wishing everybody well on their journey to their version of freedom.